Good morning, Jason. It's so cool to be here with you this Saturday morning in January. How was your week?
Oh, it was good. It was good. Yeah, it's been busy. It was so cold, I'm kind of just working inside. It's kind of nice just to,
Yes. I have a colleague who has dogs, and she said it's going to be a good dog park weekend. So maybe the weather's going to get nicer in the next few
yes.
days based on her forecast. We shall see. Do you have a favorite day of the week?
Oh man, working for yourself and doing something you really enjoy, they kind of all turn into just one big long weekend, I guess, where some days I forget what day of the week it is.
That is so
Yeah,
cool.
I guess it's the weekend. I'd have to say that just because my son's home and it's some family time too. So
Yes, weekends do hold a special place in all of our hearts, I think. I
yeah.
think if I had to choose a non-weekend day, I really like end of day on Wednesday because Wednesday is my longest day of the week. So I'm like, this is like pre-weekend. It's not, close enough to any deadlines that I'm going to do any work
Mhm.
yet when I get home. So there's like a special place in my heart for the end of hump day too. Definitely not the beginning, but the end is pretty special.
Yeah.
But that's so cool. And I like this day because we get to chat. So I'm so excited today to have Jason Jones here. You are an artist of so many different mediums and styles, and your work is so well known in this region, and I'm sure broader than that too. But I'm really excited to get to hear from your perspective today. What motivates you, the background story behind all these awesome works and robots and epic things. So thank you for being here.
Well, thank you. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah. So the place that I love to start is with that personal background where your interest in these creative practices came from, where they emerged in your story. Can you paint us a picture of, Jason Jones growing up, where you were, what you were doing, and when you started kind of dabbling in the art world?
Yeah, so basically I grew up in the same area I'm at now, just maybe it's like 30 minutes south of Fayetteville, Arkansas here. Basically in the sticks in the woods. I grew up, during the 80s when I was a kid, so it was a lot different back then when parents just kind of let your kids run wild, and I would just get up in the morning and hit the woods and go explore pretty much 7 days a week, as soon as I get home from school or whatever.
Mhm.
So I really had a strong connection to nature. That's probably influenced me some, and just the spark to be creative and learn new things and do stuff. So it kind of all emerged out of that. And then on top of that, I was very introverted. So it felt natural for me to come home and just sketch in my, in a sketchbook. It's what I would do at school. And that just kind of snowballed into, hey, I want to do this, the rest of my life.
That's so cool. So as you're mentioning, going to school, coming home, like I'm picturing like wandering in the woods, kind of like Bridge to Terabithia sort of situation. Like, were you making up like fantasy worlds? Were you fishing? What were you doing in the nature?
Totally. It was like total immersion. I mean, I can remember times now that I think back, it was a lot of risk taking. I don't think kids get as much of that now, but where I grew up, we had 10 acres and the White River crossed our land, and then it connected to another creek, the Wind Creek. And then there was a big railroad bridge that went over both of them,
Mm.
right there on the end of our land. So I could hop, there was like three directions of river I could travel up, or the railroad tracks, or just whichever direction of woods you wanted to go in. But
Wow.
yeah, I mean, I can remember times as a kid just being like probably 5 or 6 miles, away from home in the woods and just being lost, which seems crazy now, kind of, but um, yeah, it was just kind of an adventure. I've had snakes strike out, all kinds of poisonous snakes. I just didn't really have that fear, I guess, being young. Um, but yeah, at the same time, I was very in tune with nature and the environment. So I
Yeah.
just had a good feel, and that's where I wanted to be.
That's so special. I think, it makes such a difference for our lives, for our comfort level with things, where we grow up and how we grow up. Like my experience as a kid in the suburbs of Long Island, New York versus yours on the White River, you know, I like couldn't go out in the backyard without someone knowing and being on the deck. Like there was just such
Mhm.
a different world. And that's so cool what that enabled for you to have that freedom and that curiosity at a young age. So cool.
Yeah, I had so when I was young, I was obsessed with like the fish. That was the other thing I wanted to be if I wasn't an artist, was do something with marine biology. So
Wow.
as a kid, I had all these fish tanks, and I caught the fish out of the White River, which a lot of them we would feed. I'd have to catch other fish to feed the fish that I'd have. So it was like year round I was in the river. We had seine, so we would catch minnows and stuff, and then I'd have to haul them for, a mile with
Oh,
in a 5-gallon bucket. And anyways, we had all these weird little fish you typically didn't see, but I was fascinated with that.
that's so wild. Oh my gosh. And like that you would grab them and take them. Like I wouldn't even be able to touch a turtle. Probably I just wouldn't even know what to do, like how to go
Yeah,
about it.
we had
Um,
soft-shelled turtles, and there's so many weird things. There's actually even freshwater jellyfish we catch. I had a little fish tank that was just dedicated to like water snails.
wow.
There was
Oh
just
my
all
God.
kinds.
So much room for adventure and discovery. Was that what you were sketching at the time too, or were your sketches in a totally different kind of sphere?
Yeah, I mean, I would draw just anything. I guess a lot of it for me was, um, I did, as a kid, I think I drew a lot of just like dragons and just fantasy kind of things. Um, I know I didn't really play D&D or anything that much with that. I had some friends that did, but I loved like the artwork and all of that as a kid. Um, yeah, just the imagination part of it.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. I can imagine like your friends were diving into a different world by playing the game, but you were like making up your own creative space, like with the drawing. I think that's so valuable. It's such a rich experience. So I also remember when we were getting to know each other, you explained, that introvertedness that you talked about a little bit just now, and also what kind of creating did for you, enabling like your ability to communicate and connect with other people. Um, did the drawing kind of bring you out of your shell, or what was that like for how you showed up in your world?
Yeah, it definitely it was an important part of my life. Just I think because just mental health wise, I was really dyslexic as a kid, um, and I never got tested or anything. I don't even think I realized it until I went off to college. But it was a way. The drawing and all that was a way as I got older to realize like I wasn't dumb. Like I
Yes.
could do something, like schoolwork was really hard. I had to work really hard at it to do decent. Um, but I think as I got older, realizing like, oh, this is another form of intelligence that I'm good at. And I do have some smarts and values. It's just a different kind of intelligence, I guess.
Yes.
Um, and then, yeah, just being so introvert, I would get reactions from my parents and other people like, oh, you're good at this, like that's your thing. And it's just kind of rewarding, and it was a good way to connect with people.
Yeah, I think that's really a beautiful like experience that you shared, and I thank you for bringing it up here. I can imagine that the work kind of gets to speak for you when you don't want to maybe use your voice. Your paper gets to be another way that you are connecting with the world. And so insightful you were, a young version of you get to make that connection and make that work,
Mhm.
do that thing.
Yeah, I mean, my wife and we talk about. I was painfully shy. Probably needed help or therapy as a kid, and that. But yeah, at some points my wife's even said I'm probably somewhere on the spectrum, with
Mhm.
um, connecting with people and all of that. But it's definitely helped me learn a language, I guess I could say, where I can really communicate.
Yes, I love that idea of, the making as its own language. means of communicating. So that's going to stick with me for sure. So you mentioned that, your understanding of how you showed up in the world, your communication, dyslexia, all these awareness things kind of came in college. Where did you go to school? What did you study at that point?
Um, so yeah, when I went off to college, my first year, I went to a school in Missouri called Westminster.
Mhm.
Just like a small private liberal arts school. And how I ended up on that was at the time I had a girlfriend, and I followed her to that school. She was really smart, had full scholarship, and that's where she chose to go. So I was like, I applied and got in. It was really challenging. That I went to a really small high school,
Right.
middle school growing up, and I was a really good, like, quiet kid. So I think it was easy for me to slip through the cracks, like academic wise, where I did okay. I wasn't great. But then by the time I hit college, it was like, oh, I'm way behind, like
Mhm.
it was really challenging. So yeah, I went to Westminster the first year, which I did struggle academically. And then after a year, I ended up taking a break. I took a year off and came back. I struggled a lot with like depression, and anxiety when I was young. Um, I mean, that's been a whole life thing I've kind of worked with.
Mhm.
But yeah, I kind of hit a low my freshman year. So then I ended up just taking a year off, and just worked. And then I moved back home. And then I went, after a year, I was like, I want to go back. And I went to the U of A here, um, my hometown. And yeah, I just fell in going back to art, and everything just kind of started clicking.
Wow.
Um,
Yeah, I think that flexibility and attuneness to what you needed at that time must have been so valuable, right? Like you dipped your toes in one place. You gave you like a little bit of insight into what it was going to be like, but then you got to kind of pull
yeah,
yourself away and focus on, building, I guess, that foundation so that when you went back to school, you had some more tools in the toolbox to make it a successful experience, whatever that meant for you.
yeah.
That's
So
awesome. So you went to the U of A then, and were you in the arts department? Did you focus on a certain medium?
yeah, so I went, when I started out, I wanted to do sculpture, but they really didn't have a good sculpture department at the time. All the welding stuff had been put in storage, and um, so there wasn't much opportunity as far as doing like metal work. Some of the stuff I was wanting to learn at that time. So I kind of just stuck my emphasis. I actually originally started, I was going to do graphic design because it was really booming, and like you could get a really good job. And I started doing that. I did well, but it was, the computer's not for me. I realized instantly, like, I don't want to sit behind I'm used to being out and building,
Right.
very analog. Um, and then I dropped that pretty quickly. I wanted to do sculpture, but since it wasn't a great option, I ended up kind of sticking with painting. Um,
Mhm.
and then I did come back to sculpture some. I just started taking like adult ed classes for welding and stuff. Um, so I kind of just played with that on my own.
Yes, that like adult ed, continuing education stuff comes up a lot in these conversations, and I think that that's so encouraging. It's like you didn't miss your opportunity if you didn't study a certain thing at a really specific point in your life. Like these are all things you can continue building on. As you have your craft in painting already, you can lean into sculpture, and I'm sure, well, I won't assume, but um, I think maybe dabbling in one and the other can be inspiring in both ways or keep you energized, maybe.
Yeah, totally. I mean, it's all connected. I mean, for me, a lot of my inspiration, what comes from that sense of like exploring and trying the new things. So, I mean, I feel like there's a common thread or theme through my work, but it doesn't matter if it's sculpture or painting or whatever I'm working on. But yeah, it's that I learned to do something new reward you get, like from building a metal sculpture or something, even if I haven't done it before, you know.
Yeah. Oh, that's so cool and definitely rewarding. And so I know, so you were at the U of A, you've now had 20 years as an artist in the Ozarks or more, which is amazing and such a cool career that you've built. But I'm in grad school right now and I'm graduating this semester. And I'm of course thinking about that transition from school to work, right? How do you make that happen? In our field, you do internships. So you hope that that introduces you to professionals in the area or around the country if you want to leave here. What was that like for you? So you were learning at the U of A, you were thinking about what was next. What were you doing?
So yeah, after I graduated at the U of A, I ended up I got a couple gigs just painting murals. I ended up doing I did construction work part time. We built foundations like concrete work. I did that for like 2 years, but I only kind of did it part time. My boss would let me work like 3 or 4 days a week, and surprisingly, I would usually have over 40 hours. We would work really long days. He seemed okay with that. And then the rest of the week, I would just work on my art stuff. And he would, if I got a big gig, he'd kind of let me leave for a week or whatever. He was pretty flexible. I did that for a couple years. And then I started getting enough work that I could support myself. And kind of the secret, I mean, I know everyone does it differently. For me, and it was back then, my mom gave me a book that she had read called Your Money or Your Life.
Mm.
It's a really good book. It was written in the 90s. It's all still seems relevant now. But yeah, it kind of lays it all out, like what your real wage is, you know, if you take on a whatever a corporate job and what that entails, or whether if you're doing something you love. And it just really clicked with me and just made sense. So I just decided like I'm gonna make art no matter what. I I was gonna adjust my lifestyle to fit what I was making. And I've always done that. You kind of have to with what I do because it's so many ups and downs with this kind of career.
Wow.
Yeah, after 2 years, I got enough to where I had a lifestyle that fit no matter what money I was gonna make with the art. And ever since, I've made it work. So yeah, it's been over 20 years I've done it full time.
That's an amazing trajectory. And I think that having a mom in your corner who's like, read this book and recognize that, the money doesn't lead, like the passion
Yeah.
leads, the skill leads is powerful and very counterculture, I think, like not, what the traditional wisdom is, but so much more
Mhm.
helpful.
I've avoided debt my entire life. Just the way, yeah, from reading that book and Wired. So I've always just almost had no bills. Like we've paid everything off, or how, like everything. So I've always just lived as basic, just content with what I had. And it's always worked out really, really well. And then I came from a place too. My father passed from cancer when I was young. And my mom, she had 4 kids. I was the only one still kind of home when my dad passed. But she's she was born in the early, or late 40s. It
Mm.
was back then, she didn't even finish the 10th grade. So it's like we kind of came from poverty. My dad was from southeastern Arkansas. Um, so we were used to like not having money. So I felt like by the time I was through with college and this and that, it was like I'm comfortable with the lifestyle. I guess we're very happy people. So
Yes.
it almost felt like it didn't matter what money I was gonna make. There's nothing to lose. I'm like, I'm gonna make art. If I didn't have that drive to be like, oh, I need to make 6 figures a year or whatever. It was just happy with doing what I wanted to do.
Right.
Um, that made a
I
big
think
difference.
that's so freeing. That's so cool. Like to not have that be in the forefront of your mind. Made a lot of space for more important thoughts that would lead you much further.
Yeah, I think if a lot of people realize that, as far as like material things, like they don't bring you happiness, just just learn to be happy. And then, yeah, life is so much easier. You don't have to work so hard, you know.
Yes. Oh, that's so cool. And I could think about that for days because it's a topic that means a lot to me, but I'm so thankful for what you shared about it from your lived experience.
Yeah, totally. You should try that book sometime, The Money or Your Life. It was life changing for me.
I'm so excited for it. I'm really into audiobooks right now because I spend so much time commuting between all the different downtowns of
Yeah.
Northwest Arkansas that like I'm ready for another good read slash listen. And I will put that in the queues. Thank you. And I love what you mentioned about this construction job being really helpful because of the flexibility that it allowed. I think that that is such a testament to um, I think relationship building also, like that boss sounds like a really important person. And you're like, maybe they didn't have the ability to mentor you in the field that you'd ultimately be in, but they believed in like the thing you were ultimately pursuing. They understood that you were there to like as a means to your goal. And that's so powerful and so like valuable.
Yeah, of course. I've been really lucky with people, my family and everyone giving me support. I, I haven't really even thought about that till recently. You know, a lot of young people think they want to be an artist and they'll tell their parents, and then they get that face like, ooh, how are you
Mhm.
going to live? You know, kind of thing. I've never had any of that. Everyone in my family and my life has been really supportive. Um, so yeah, I think that's important. That's just being lucky. Yes.
Yeah, I think there's more to it. I think your personality, your kindness are very special traits that you have that make people more interested than otherwise to be helpful and to want to see you succeed. And so that's a testament to you too.
Well, thank
Um,
you.
yeah. So you started working on murals. That became your main like funded art. Did you learn how to do that kind of scale of work in school? Did the construction job help you with this like transferring of your painting skills? How did that come about?
Yeah, so in school you learn kind of some basic stuff, you know, like color study, but no, they don't teach. At that time there was nothing about doing murals. It was just me learning. I probably learned most of the like the technical skills of doing large scale paintings from like you know, I would be in some fancy homes and there would be high-end house painters I would meet, you know, and they would show me stuff like, hey, you should look into this spray gun or whatever, you know, and I
Mhm.
learned stuff just from being on site and just figuring it out and asking questions, you know, from some people. But yeah, it was the learning process was very slow for me back then. Now they have YouTube, you can Google, they've got apps that'll show you how to put on a giant mural on a giant wall and scale it and everything. But yeah, at the time it was just me walking up to the wall and figuring it out, you know,
Yes.
which is slow, but it's rewarding. You're
Organic,
excited
you
when
can
it works.
say, right? A very organic process. Do you remember what your first mural was? Like, is it one that I could still find around town? How did that first commission kind of come to life?
You know, the first commission I got was uh so the little city that I grew up closest to is called West Fork. And yeah, back in the, I want to say I was 14, I think. There was a video store in the city, and the owner of that commissioned me to, he had this fence along the side of the store, and I just painted like movie scenes all on it. And I think in the end, he ended up with the first time I painted it, he just gave me like some video game rentals and stuff. We just kind of traded.
That's
Um, and I ended up riding my bike every day. It was like 3 to 4 miles. I'd ride my bike and go work on it and then ride back home. And then I repainted it again when I was maybe 16. It was a couple years later.
Mhm.
Um, I think he gave me like a couple $100 and then some more, you know, VHS rental tapes.
Back in the day. Oh, that's so cool. What a beautiful story and first memory of having someone recognize that value really tangibly in what you were doing and in your skill. And so now you divide your work. You do some, you do a lot of large scale mural like work, and then you do some smaller work too. And I love like getting to understand recently your take on like what you enjoy about both, what is maybe stress relieving about going to the small works. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, so for a long time it just worked out well for me, as in, the really big jobs I wouldn't get that often. They were just kind of random. So I would end up, my time would kind of get split. I would work on that like half of the year, and then the other half would be slower. I might have a month or two that something big doesn't come in. So I would just use that time, like I'm making art if I'm getting paid or not. So I would just work on paintings, in my studio. And there was always a nice balance of that, having a big kind of stressful gig, it's exciting, and then having some downtime where I'm just like creative freedom. And I've always kind of tried to maintain that because it just works well. Over the past few years, it's picked up where it was just almost nothing but big mural commissions, and then it was making me crazy. So I've scheduled in a sabbatical now. It's kind of what I'm doing now, is just working on small stuff, creative freedom in the studio.
Yeah, I imagine that your like attunedness to mental health is really helpful with being aware of the need for that balance. I spend so much of my day talking about anxiety and depression and how they're about like our mind dwelling too much in the past or in the future or in expectations. And so that you find you like schedule in this moment for yourself to do this smaller scale work is like such an important intervention to not be super anxious or super depressed, but to maintain kind of more around even keeled. That's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah, my artwork is, it kind of sounds like a selfish thing, but most of what I do, it ends up being like for my therapy, basically, the whole art. So
Yes.
I do connect and enjoy putting it out for other people, but yeah, a lot of it ends up being just, this makes me feel better. So.
And so we will do that. And I think that, logically, then, if it makes you feel better, it'll probably make someone else feel good to see it or experience it. And that's not a bad thing. That's pretty awesome. So I'm really excited to talk a little bit more about the style of your work. I have seen you describe it as whimsical, which is just a word that I adore. And I wondered if you could speak more about that style and what draws you to it.
Yeah, totally. So I would say my style, it kind of originates from a couple different places. The first is basically the mental health stuff, where I learned pretty early on, just struggling with depression and anxiety, that if I'm making art that is joyful, it it's like a escapism, I guess, or it just turns the volume down on the, whatever I'm struggling with
Right.
mentally. As in, yeah, if I'm just focused on something, that's why I use humor a lot in my art, or just try to keep it light and whimsical fun. Yeah, it just turns my brain on to that. So yeah, I stick with that. And then the other thing is that it's reinforced by doing just public art. uh, a lot of times with social media and stuff, I've learned it's pretty much impossible to please all the adults. So I really focus on children. Like, when that's like what's up front in my mind when I'm designing a public piece, is like, what are the kids gonna like? And then I just try to make it fun and something that's gonna make them smile.
Yeah, I love that. I studied marketing. I was in that field before social work. We talked about like a target audience. So the children are the focus. They're the goal. Get the children on board.
Yes.
Then the parents might follow, but really if the kids are happy, we are happy. So that's really, really special. And there's I love that in this time, like we're talking about Europe, we're not showing it yet. So we're building some fun anticipation. Hopefully people are on the edge of their seat. Like, what does this art look like? What are Jason's murals? So there's some technical parts that you incorporate. There's some nature sometimes, like Can you speak to that at all, or what is kind of characteristic of your work?
Yeah, so I mean, I do a lot of um, robots. People request them, which that's kind of
Robot guy.
part of that has just been from a business angle. Is I did a robot or two early on, and people really responded that, and they request robots. So it's kind of formed, and I just follow that some, and that's developed. And in my brain is like a theme of the future or technology and kind of where that goes, and then I like to incorporate nature in with that. So I've kind of played a lot with that theme. But yeah, I mean, my artwork can be all over the place. Sometimes I'll just, if I'm designing something for a specific location, I kind of might base off the history of the location, as the starting point, and I try to work something in with that or the environment. But yeah.
Yes. That's so cool. I think that there's a like an accessibility element to it because it is so joyful, and some qualities of it are childlike, but then also like that ability to bring people in gives them a chance to have headier thoughts about the future of these things in our world and what it means for them and for those children. And it works on a lot of levels. And that idea of you also thinking intentionally about the space that art is living, I imagine just adds to that. So I'll pull up here. We'll start with these canvas works and the robots. I love that story of the first time you stumbled on the robot, like becoming part of your work. Can you share about that with the thrift store kind of art piece that you reimagined?
Yeah, so it was, I don't know, maybe 10 to 12 years ago. I was buying artwork at thrift stores just because it was cheap frames. I would get the pieces and then take the print out or whatever, and then make a canvas just to fit the frame, just because I'm cheap or frugal. um, and it was inexpensive frames. But yeah, at one point I had one. It was just like a ghost town western looking scene, and it had a tear in the print, and I just randomly painted a robot over the tear just for fun, and I got a really positive response from everyone. Everyone loved it. I had like 10 people like, can I buy that? And they wanted it. So yeah, that was the first one, and then I just kind of after that was like, ooh, this is much easier than painting a whole canvas. It was kind of fun, and it goes along with my whole concept of upcycling, and say I'm saving these from going in the trash basically, and that kind of just felt good.
Yes, they instantly become so much cooler. Like they're just it's so special.
Yeah, and creatively, it's like they already have such a weird little story, and then I'm just like, taking the story in a new direction and adding to it. So it's always just kind of nice. Every one of them ends up being so different because each one's by a different artist. I really like that. It feels, I know it's not, but it feels a little bit like a collaboration, like I'm working on top of, someone else's art. It's just kind
Yeah.
of fun.
I think that's so special and in a cool way to celebrate that work is still valid and just kind of it's getting a what not a makeover but like an update. I don't know, a sprucing,
Yeah.
repurposing. And so I wonder in your head, are each of these robots a different robot or are they the same robot on new adventures? Like, have you gone that far down the rabbit hole or am I conjecturing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't, they're kind of different robots. I guess I like the challenge of like, I would probably get bored if I painted the same one just because it would feel more like factory work. So it's
Yep.
like a creative challenge to make each one a little different. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, a lot of them ends up just, it's like a robot in the woods, or they're like playing or doing something outdoors. But it probably comes back to my childhood some. That's like me alone in the woods. It's just like exploring. I don't
Yes.
know, I like that. that nostalgia too, probably for me.
Yes. Were there any like robot cartoons? Like, the body structure of your robots really, to me, is very distinctive. Like it has these long legs and this like bigger, like torso. Like, is that modeled off of or inspired by anything, or just kind of, came to you in the
It's
moment?
kind of developed into, I think in the, when I was younger, I was doing some metal sculpture, and I would create these figures. And I was always afraid, like, I don't want these to seem robotic, because it's like metal or whatever.
Yes.
Um, so I would really try to make them feel as organic or whatever as I could with my sculpture. It was just like found object metal sculpture. Um, but I think after I did like the first robot thrift store painting and stuff, and people were really reacting to it, at some point I was like, why can't they be robots? Like, so I was just like embracing it, and then I try to find a balance where they're still uh they they're robots, but they're alive kind of feeling, like they're they're expressing, you know, themselves, I guess. Um
Yes.
yeah, I just go down that rabbit hole, I guess.
I love
With it,
that.
see where it's gonna take me.
And I love that idea of eventually, like ultimately leaning into the thing that you had been resisting. Like, you mentioned you don't love computer work, and I agree. Like, I love the idea of having the hands and the fingers of a graphic designer. Like, I think that is such a great resource. But I took a like very brief course last summer, and I was like, I hate this. Like, I
Mm,
literally do not enjoy any moment of this experience, and I feel so limited because I want this cover for this YouTube channel, or I want this
mhm.
thing. And I discovered on the slides, you can actually make your mouse like a pencil and just kind of scribble. I was like, you know what? This works for me. Like, I'm just going to
Yeah,
scribble. Like, I can't do graphic design. I'm going to lean into it. And, I think it will be okay. People will like it. And so with your robots too, like, we don't have to resist the robots. The robots are pretty awesome in their own
yeah.
right. And I love that. So that's super cool. Oh, and I wanted to ask, so the top right, not quite a robot, right? It's more like what is it?
Yeah, I don't know, just like a monster. Kind of, I've got some Bigfoot like creatures. Um, yeah, I'm always just trying different stuff, mixing it up. So yeah, there's some there's all kinds. I've done all kinds of just weird, almost like mythological looking creatures. I know sometimes I get interested in, you know, not exactly Bigfoot, but there's all kinds of local mythology,
Wow.
for these monsters in the woods. I guess I do find some of that exciting to explore, just because I love being in the woods. Like,
Yes, that's so cool. And a cool way to share that history or that mythology with the next generation. I think that this
mhm.
photo really wants me to understand, makes me want to understand the past, and that storytelling more than I would have otherwise. So that's really cool. So here are some of your local murals from kind of all around town. I'd love to hear a little bit about, the story behind some of them or any of them that stand out to you right now.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, like the the giant kraken, I did that maybe 5, 6 years ago. And it's in Bentonville, as you can see. Yeah, originally they were wanting like a huge postcard mural, where you see the letters and it's got like local
Mhm.
scenes in each letter, which I was not excited about, just because I'm like, that's been done. And it's not really what I do. Um, so it was a lot of back and forth with them. And in the end, we ended up talking about like they really wanted to represent Bentonville and its landmarks. And I kind of just sold them on let's make a landmark, because back then there wasn't as great a landmarks. They've got a lot more going on now.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was like a Confederate statue in the square. I'm like, I don't want to paint. So anyways, yeah, it was kind of a process. And then they hired another artist that was as a photographer that was going to do possibly the postcard mural that was going to be attached, with like vinyl, and that didn't work out. So then they came back, but they kept the artist on to kind of help, come up with the idea. And she really liked krakens and some of the octopus paintings that I've done. So she was like, I'm going to sell them on this, doing a giant octopus. And I was like, perfect, let's do it. And then I just kind of worked in some of the local landmarks. So the pickup truck is like Sam Walton's old pickup, and it's got the silver tree sculpture in front of Crystal Bridges. You can't really see it all. It keeps going down, but there's some people on bikes, and anyways, it's all kind of the local landmarks. It just kind of worked them in.
Yes.
The fun part of it is just hearing the reactions from a lot of people. Of course, when you put something out there, as an artist, your thoughts on meaning or whatever, they don't really mean that much. It's usually like people attach their own, concepts or whatever it means to them. So it was kind of fun working on it. I had probably, with that one, I had the most people. Just, it's on a busy road, so I had so many people stopping and asking and telling me their stories about it, which was a lot of fun. Of course, the Walmart headquarters is in Bentonville, so there was a lot of people reacting to it in that sense. So it's hard, you can't really live in Bentonville and not be connected in some way to the Waltons. So yeah, a lot of people reading into that is like the octopus is like Walmart. Like,
That's wild.
those are everywhere kind of thing there. Which, to be honest, I did think of that some creating it, but not really thinking, oh, that's the meaning that this is going to take. But it was fun to hear people's reactions to it. Some people would have really emotional reactions. I had people, one lady was nearly in tears, and she was telling me her story when she stopped, and her experiences of working at the home office for so many years. Anyways, it was interesting.
Wow. Oh my gosh. And I like, people are so clever. Like, I hadn't even stopped to think about that layer of the octopus and the comparison to our big brother Sam Walton. And I love also that, like, then the octopus is, or sorry, they keep saying the kraken is blue. And it works. But it's so unexpected, and it's so perfect at the same time. I just think it's so such a special part of what is now like an anchor of Bentonville in my eyes. When was this? This was for at least a couple of years ago, right?
I'm gonna say I think I painted that in 2017.
Wow.
So it was, maybe 5 years, 5 or 6. Seems
That's
like
amazing. And amazing how much Bentonville itself has grown and evolved since even 5 years ago.
Yeah, it's which now there's public art, it's changed so much. Everyone's more open to having big pieces and stuff like this. But yeah, at the time that I painted that, it was a little shocking. I think it got a lot more exposure in the beginning, just because it was kind of new and fresh, and there weren't so many murals up there then. But yeah, it's fun to just see all the reactions. And
Yes. So which one of these came next of the bottom?
So the next one would be the Goldfish, and that one's in Springdale, Arkansas. It's on the bike trail. You see it from the Greenway that connects all the cities. And that one I did, they had like a little mural festival thing last summer, and I painted that one. I had the idea, it was right when the vaccine came out, and I had the idea where it just kind of felt like we've been in a fishbowl for so long, and we were like getting out of it. Of course, now it's not so much because, of course, we're not through it. But
Right.
at the time, it felt like, oh, we're turning a corner. So I kind of based it as like getting out of the fishbowl and turning a corner kind of thing, um, which I guess is still relevant for other things, though we're not out of the,
Yeah.
eventually we'll get out of this, right? So,
That's so cool. I've walked past this one so many times. I've admired it so many times. I've talked about the goldfish in Springdale, and like I've brought people to take headshots in front of it, and I never knew that inside scoop of its relationship with the pandemic. And I think that's so powerful.
yeah, I usually don't post my thoughts on things because I like hearing other people's. I mean, and sometimes I'll have children, like I've had people send me stories that their kids have written about my murals. And I'm like, that's so much better than anything I ever could have came up with. So I like that, the learning what other people think. So yeah, I kind of keep it quiet to myself, where they come from.
I think that's so like special and wise. It's as if to me like your work gives people a chance to start thinking about the world differently, to um choose to exercise their creative like abilities on something. You give them like a thing to react to. That's um very cool, very special. um and so the next one, also really really unique and three-dimensional and like multimedia informed. How did this one
Yeah.
come to be?
So that one, I did finished it up this last year. It's probably the biggest, most one of the most challenging projects I've done. But yeah, just to get a sense of scale from with the robot from hand to hand, it's over 40 feet across. And then trying to remember to the top of his head or the antenna, I think it's 18 feet, somewhere in there. So he's big. Um, yeah, it's all fabricated steel. This project just started out, originally, they just wanted me to do a mural, and it kind of grew as they went. And then it kind of opened up, and they were like, yeah, let's build a sculpture. So yeah, I worked on that project for about a year. I had help. I got help from another artist, with a lot of the metal work, and then it has a big TV screen in its chest too, like an exterior. So originally I was working on some animation, which ended up being a lot more complicated work than I was kind of capable of. So then we ended up, someone else made this kind of video. But yeah, kind of the whole thing evolved out of, this sets on the bike trail to the Greenway, on the north end of Bentonville. And so there's like the bike trail, and then across from that, there's a really nice little creek and a popular swim hole. So I kind of just envision him just sitting and chilling, almost like a meditative pose by the river. It's kind of why I painted the plants in the back. It's all kind of like creek plants. So there's like the damselfly. There's a big mushroom on the side of the building. So it's all kind of like river plants. Um, and the idea was just kind of him thinking of just sitting, chilling, being part of nature. So it's kind of like the future.
That's so cool. Oh my gosh, I could picture him going to, I think Cocoon Yoga Lab is around like a mile or so away and just kind of vibing
Yeah.
in his own moment. That's so special. And what is happening on the TV screen?
So the screen, it's like a 20-minute video. And Mike Abt ended up doing the video, and a lot of it has, there's like a lot of my thrift store artwork with the robots. So it'll play some of those, where you can see all these other robots hanging out in nature. And then he's also done some videos. We made like a little bit of a storyline. So the robot's name is Clank, and it's, the story is kind of like he's came, um, kind of from the future to help help us acknowledge to kind of take care of nature and be part of it, and just enjoy it.
Yes. Oh my gosh. if you were ever approached to make like a TV show for Clank, do you see Clank having other lives? I feel like this is a very powerful character with a very important message.
Yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, what I hope. That's what I would like to do is, and with the TV screen, it's always open to like uh, to be developed, and make new videos and change things out and new storylines. That's what we talked about. Like, um, I asked my son, he's 14 now. I was like, hey, he's really creative. I said, you want to come up with a little storyline? Yeah. And with what he came up, it was just like, it was brilliant. He had this whole storyline of like the robot, traveled from another planet, and he came to learn how to take care, of the earth and the nature. And he was like, had the whole storyline where people could sit in his hand, like there's sensors in his hands, and he could beam up their good vibes back to his people,
What a lovely story.
I know he's so creative, and he like beam it up through his antenna. Anyways, I love that.
Oh, it's so heartwarming. It's just the next tearjerker from
Yeah,
Pixar. Like,
kind of the Iron Giant feel,
oh, that's so cool. So something that we get to look forward to as a public is enjoying those stories and that action. So cool. And what I love too is that, Jason, you're so willing to engage people. Like, I've tagged you so many times when I've been at your murals and just admiring them. And you're really good on your social media. So anyone who sees this, if you go to a mural, like post it on your story, tag Jason, he'll send a smiley face back. It's so much fun. I think that that's so nice that you have that interaction with the people who are experiencing your work, and that you like to know what they're thinking about it.
Well, it comes right back to me. I feel great when people, engage and,
Yes.
Are grateful for any of my work. So, yeah, I'm so happy. I'm still surprised, like, oh, people like this. So it's rewarding for me, definitely.
Yeah. This is another one that's like so fun to be caught off guard by, because it's on this road that like I'm not used to like really looking out for anything on, and then all of a sudden there's this awesome horse like vibing out in its own right. This is a collaboration too, right, with Matt Miller Studio. So can you tell me about this?
Yeah. So Matt, he's an incredible guy. I've become friends with. We've worked together a few times, and he's so chill and just laid back. So yeah, we always look for, we were both asked to bid painting a mural on this barn, and then he was, asked separately, and we were immediately like, hey, let's bid it together, because we like working together so much. So yeah, this started out, this one's on the bike trail too. That's kind of been a goal of mine, to get a piece of public artwork that you can see on the Greenway bike trail that passes through all the cities here in Northwest Arkansas. Mm-hmm. So the robot was in Bentonville. This one's in Rogers. And then the Goldfish is in Springdale. And then I have another one that's like a jackrabbit that's here in Fayetteville. Yeah. So you can see from the trail piece that I've done in each city if you ride the length of the trail. So yeah, this one was in Rogers. And at the trailhead there, it's called Horse Barn Trailhead.
Yeah.
This isn't the original horse barn. This was a different barn, but you still see it right there at the park. It's like across the street. So that's kind of where the theme came, was the owner was wanting something that people from the trail could see, and it could just kind of be a landmark. And we just ran with that whole theme. So it's on Horse Barn Road at Horse Barn Trailhead on a barn. So we put a horse on a barn. This just made sense.
That's so cool. Oh no, it brings so much life to that area too. Just a different type of like really modern energy, and it makes that park like a destination for me. Like, I don't have kids, I wouldn't be like hanging out there otherwise necessarily, but sometimes I'll go sit in my car, just listen to some music, look at the horse, like decompress on my way home. It's a very special moment that it creates.
Nice. And
Yeah.
we had good vibes there for sure, because usually I'm in a big hot parking lot, you know.
Uh,
It's so this is just like a serene, you know, there's huge oak trees, a walnut tree, and then I'm with my friend Matt. It was so great to just chill.
yes. What was that collaborative process like? So, like, are you literally with a blank piece of paper in front of you drawing together? Are you going back and forth? How do you guys work together?
Yeah, we go back and forth. I mean, it's been recently I've started using Procreate, um, and he uses that, so we could kind of pass sketches back and forth. But yeah, Matt and I work very differently. Like, I plan out everything, like it's all worked out in advance and gridded out, whatever. So I know exactly what it's gonna the end product's gonna be like. But Matt's great about he'll just walk up to a wall and figure it out as he goes.
Wow.
So yeah, it's kind of we work differently, but then um, he's so flexible. He's just like, yeah, you do your thing, and we'll figure it out, and it just works out fine.
That's
Um,
amazing. How did you two initially come to know each other? I think that this world of artists, makers, creatives in Northwest Arkansas is so special. And I'd love to hear that story.
yeah, so I mean, I've known him for a long time, but not like personally. I just know his work. He has a studio at the Fayetteville Square. We live close to the square, so I'm used to seeing his work in his studio. Yeah, it was kind of later on. Um, I think he's kind of reached out to me at one point about he was getting some more mural projects to bid and stuff, and just asking technical questions and stuff. And I'm really open. If anyone has any questions as far as because I'm just fascinated with that end on how to stuff. So I get excited. We just got to talking and stuff and just quickly became friends. Yeah, I always tell Matt, he's like, he lowers my blood pressure when I'm around him. He's just one of those people. He, he meditates regular. I think he's just this week doing like a meditation retreat at like Crystal Bridges with art, and I don't know. He's
Wow.
way more advanced than I am on that. But anyways, I've really enjoyed getting to know him and just pick up on his joy. Oh my
Yes, what
God.
a nice sentiment too that someone could have the effect of like lowering one's blood pressure. I love that so I can wrap my head around that so easily and it's so like that's a great kind of person to be around. And that
Yeah,
amazing and that posture of openness that enabled you guys to connect is something that we should not take for granted. That means
yeah. So we trail run together and do some stuff, and then this is probably maybe our third or fourth collaboration mural. So
so cool. I look forward to seeing what's down the line then, whatever collaborations come up next between you guys. So that was so fun to take a closer dive into some of your works and that barely skims the surface. You've done so many cool things in this area. Um, as we're talking about this, we're like really diving into, Northwest Arkansas and your impact here. I'm curious about if you ever considered like, going outside of this area and if not, like what continues to motivate and inspire you right here.
yeah, that's kind of been I guess that's a dilemma for me. I do sometimes get people wanting to bid stuff out of state, and I've done a couple things, a few things, but I'm a homebody. I guess like it's over the years too, some of it just having my family here. I know most of the artists that do what I do, they travel the world. I just miss my family too much. I don't really enjoy the travel so much. Um, yeah, I'm kind of. Sometimes I worry I'm going to get tapped out here. Like I just done too much. So yeah, I don't know. As my kid gets older, I may start reaching out and trying to do some mural festivals, like a few more, um, throughout the year. That I know when you do the festivals, they don't really pay so much money, but you get artistic freedom.
Mhm.
Um, and that sounds really exciting to me just because the
Yes.
commission stuff is always a lot of back and forth. And then I would like to be able to do things with like kind of edgier, you know, more meaning or whatever a lot of times. So
Yes, those will be so cool if you do them. We'll look forward to seeing your work uninhibited, right? Without any
yeah.
unbounded. That's so cool. So as we start to wrap up, I ask, these kind of like more succinct questions just to understand from your words, like these things that I think are really important. And the first one is, why, from your view, does art matter? What keeps inspiring you and motivating you to do this work each day?
um well, just on a personal level, it's my mental health. I would do it no matter what, I think, if I got paid or not.
Yes.
um but yeah, I think it's important though. I mean, especially with public art, for me, I really pick up on the sense of like community pride and identity and stuff in the area, um, which feels important. I know I've had people that have stopped me when I've been painting, and they're like, I can't really afford to buy, you know, art, but they're like, I see yours every day, and it makes me smile, or it brings them joy. So I don't that end of it feels important to
Yeah,
me.
I love that. What do you have any like lessons you've learned along the way? Any advice that you like to share for people who are trying to learn more, to create, to do something similar for their hometown? Anything like that?
Yeah. I don't know, if you're starting out, it's for me, it's just be patient, and do it because you love to do it. And it just kind of happens. I think, if you stick with it long enough. For me, it's been like the hare and the tortoise. I've definitely been the tortoise. It's just been a lot of little wins over the years. But yeah, I just kind of go with the flow and just
Yes.
love it.
That's so true, right? I think that love can be what helps us endure in that long tortoise marathon situation. So that's awesome. And finally, what do you want people to leave knowing about you and your work? And what are you looking forward to right now? That can be as small as, some tea after we chat, and as big as one of those festivals. Doesn't, I mean, the sky's the limit.
Yeah. So as far as what they take away from my work is, I hope people just, if they just have a smile, I guess I'm good with that. So yeah, I feel that connection. I do get a lot of people responding saying your work makes me happy. So I'm just thrilled with that. Um, so yeah. And as far as what's coming up and I'm looking forward to, I mean, I am really enjoying my little sabbatical of just, I got in a new studio and just doing whatever. I think I'm I might try to extend my sabbatical some into the spring, and I've got an idea for another metal sculpture. Maybe not as big as the Clank one, but um, yeah, I'm feeling excited about the possibilities of that.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so many good things going on, so many good things to come. It has been such an honor to get to know you. I'm so excited to share your story. And I just, thank you so much, Jason, for being here, for chatting with me on this Saturday during your sabbatical. I can't wait to see what's next.
Well, nice. Well, thank you so much.